Yo, love. Word up, people. What's up? What is up? This is a mannequin wearing a feather something. If you're wondering, it's something I made for a costume once, and now it decorates my home to make people wonder what is wrong with me. So there has been, I've talked about this so many times before, that I made a choice early in 2020 when I was rewriting these books that I was going to write them for a specific type of reader rather than writing them to market. Both are legitimate avenues or tactics, I suppose, in writing. I definitely see the value in writing to market because you increase your chances of making money significantly. And that is the goal of publishing. That is the main goal of publishing books, is to make money. But publishing is not my primary reason for writing. My number one reason for writing is because of the pleasure and joy it brings to me, the cathartic, therapeutic kind of cleansing, purifying. It's like it keeps all of my ductworks open and flowing in a way that I mean, emotional ductworks, obviously not like physical ductworks. That would be either, like my lungs or other parts of my anatomy. But if my creativity is allowed to move and breathe and function and flow and do all those things that it's supposed to do, it allows my emotional landscape to remain relatively free of debris. So I am less likely to be stressed. I'm less likely to get hung up on problems. I will find solutions more easily, or if there isn't a solution to be found, not right away, I can accept that and move on. There's a lot of benefits that come from writing that are, like good for me emotionally, but just writing itself is the most fun thing I do. Like it is the thing that gives me the most pleasure. And this is not an exaggeration. I'm not speaking in hyperbole. This is the truth. So that's why I write, which is, why I choose to write the way I want to write rather than writing specifically for market. In the future, I may write another series or another book or whatever for market for the purpose just of making money. But that's not where I am now. So there are some questions that I have in this process. Right now, I'm working through my Bones manuscript, and I've made it through the first third of the manuscript. And it's coming much quicker and easier than I anticipated. Because when I tell you my editor ripped this book a new one, so to speak, a new asshole, I am assuming that's what that expression is referring to. When I tell you that my editor ripped my manuscript a new asshole, really what she did is she chopped it up, literally, not figuratively. She chopped it up and just like, she actually said in a letter that at one point the manuscript had fried her brain to the point that the only way she could to kind of take it all in was to use note cards. I'm assuming to make notes of each chapter and lay them out in front of her. And then she literally just moved them around until she felt like they were in the appropriate order. And then she told me, put it in this order. Oh, and by the way, the last third of the book, you need to rewrite that from scratch. Oh, also, you need to really rewrite or, do a substantial rewrite on the first third of the book. Also, the middle of the book is still a lot of setup, and we need to be past the setup part. So you need to do something about that. So basically, rewrite the damn book. Like, that's what she was saying. And I was like, no, no, I am not. And she approaches this from the perspective as an editor. she approaches it, I believe, she has not ever said this, but her comments suggest this, that she edits from the perspective of what is going to make this book the most reader friendly, that is going to make it more appealing to a broader audience. So she is essentially editing the book as if I was writing it to market. We've discussed this. And I have gone back, I mean, you and I have discussed it, of course, and we've also discussed that this isn't a discussion. I'm talking and you're listening. But we're not going to get hung up on the linguistics there. Of course, I begin, when I read her comments, and she was very explicitly, like, she struggled with this manuscript, and she brought up many, many, many valid points. But when she is as adamant as she is about certain things, it really makes me question whether or not I've made the right decision to write for a reader like me rather than writing to market. Of course, I've already started this series with a particular style of writing in mind, so I'm going to finish that out for the duration of the series. But have you ever watched a movie or a television show, I suppose, anything on TV or on a screen, where someone's in a little boat and they're like fishing, but they light a stick of dynamite and toss it over, and it goes off, and the explosion stuns the fish, and the fish float to the surface of the water? I feel like her developmental edit does that for my book, only instead of fish floating to the water, it is any weakness, any issue that for whatever reason I have not perceived. So she had lots of questions about the motivations for the characters. Like a lot of her, there were two main problems that she had. One is the GMCs, the goals, motivations, and conflicts for the characters was apparently unclear to the point of not existing. And the other was that there doesn't seem to be a plot to the story. Which, yeah, okay. So I'm not disagreeing with her. The goals, motivations, and conflicts of the characters were very, very clear and apparent to me, but the fact that she could not identify them is one of those fish floating to the surface, which is, there are issues with my readers being able to connect with the characters' goals, motivations, and conflicts. That is an easy fix. That is something that I can do with no worries, because I know the goals, I know the conflicts, I know the motivations. All of those things are as clear to me as daylight. And what isn't clear is that I haven't necessarily communicated that in a way that the reader will engage with or understand intuitively. I'm not looking to just spell everything out and be very, very clear in that sense. Like some authors, particular authors who write to market, because books written for market, I believe, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe they are kind of designed to be easier to get. You don't have to think real hard. You're just reading it for fun and entertainment, which I want my books to be fun and entertaining, but I also want my readers to think, and I want to trust my readers to have independent thought, and I don't have to spoon feed them every little detail or remind them of everything that we've been over in one of the previous books, or define everything. The context clues will explain it. I don't have to spell out what the motivation for all the characters are, because the character's action explains their motivations. So I think there is a balance to those two things. Me trusting the reader to make connections and draw conclusions and essentially see these characters the same way they would see a person that they work with, or a member of their family, or someone in a line at a grocery store checking out in front of them, or whatever the case may be. There's a balance between that kind of connection that I want to establish or foster in my reader, the connection between my reader and my characters, and actually just saying things that my reader needs me to say, you know? So there's this tricky balance. Here's what I mean. In life, each of us goes through life every single day, reading the nonverbals, the body language, all of these types of communication that we share with one another, that are unspoken or that are beyond spoken. So If someone says, and this is, thank you, you're welcome, I'm about to give you a free lesson. If someone says, how are you? And I say, oh, I'm good. I am great. Like, I'm really good. Chances are that means I'm good, I'm great, I'm really good. On the other hand, if someone says, how are you? And I say, I'm good, I'm great, I'm like really good. Chances are I'm not, you know? And it's not just the tone, which is a little bit sarcastic, but it's also the fact that I'm rolling my eyes, the fact that I'm not necessarily looking directly at the person when I'm answering. Or if you just walk into a room and I'm like slouched, you may draw conclusions based on my body language. I'm not going to act all this shit out. Based on my body language, based on my facial expressions, that maybe I'm bored, or maybe I'm tired, or maybe I am distracted, maybe I am worried or afraid, or you pick up on those things by my body language. When writing, this is showing versus telling, right? And there's a balance between showing and telling. And so I have to tell enough so that my reader doesn't have to decipher every little thing. But I don't need to tell everything, because then the reader will feel annoyed. So when I'm working through her manuscript notes and the manuscript itself, I am conflicted because on the one hand, I don't know what I'm doing. It's as simple as that, except it's not, because I have intuition, I have what I would consider my own personal instincts, and based on the feedback that I have gotten about my first two books, not just from reviewers, but from, you know, professionals that I've worked with, whether it's Parissa or whether it's Mike, my marketing guy, I feel like I've gotten enough positive feedback to prove that I'm moving in the right direction for the audience I'm trying to reach, that I'm writing for. But it's always a tricky balance. And I find incredible value, even though I believe that my editor is editing the book as if I'm writing to market, and that's not what I want. I at this point still feel like that investment because it costs more to get a developmental edit. And she is doing a developmental edit based on the beats and the when things are supposed to happen. I forget what she calls it, but it's very similar. I used to teach literature at a youth home, and it's very similar to the hero journey or the hero myth. If you're familiar with that, most people have at least heard of it. Most people have studied it in class, but you know, if you're not a literary person, then you probably dismissed that the second you forgot about it or took the test. But if you're watching my videos, it's either because I am just damn handsome, or it's because you're a reader, and so you probably know what I'm talking about. And chances are you're watching because you're a reader, and so you know what I'm talking about. So the hero myth, the hero journey, which is kind of, I think, what Parissa is editing my manuscripts to, basically. There are things that happen. There is, in any story, we know there is a beginning, middle, and end. There is a catalyst that initiates the action. There is a conflict, a kind of a crescendo until there is a climax, and then there's the resolution, and there are lots of steps in between there. And she is looking for those beats. She is looking for the story to follow those beats. And I will never write a story to fit those beats. I am going to write a story, and the story is going to flow organically based on the circumstances surrounding my characters and the characters themselves, how they think, how they act, their reactions, their proactions. All of those things are going to determine the flow of the story. And I want the story to be more like life in that sense, so that things don't always happen in a convenient manner. And there is nothing that drives me crazy more, or that irritates me more when I am consuming entertainment, whether it's reading or a movie or TV or whatever, than for me to feel like a creator or an author, a writer, has used a literary gimmick to tell their story in an easier way or a cheap way. So, for example, there's a reference in book 4, which I've written the first fourth of in a first draft. It's very early stages of that draft, where one character talks about receiving letters from another character that we know from the previous book. But in the previous book, there's no reference to that character sending letters to the second character. There's plenty of time for that. And that it was written into the story that way. Like the character who sent the letters spent time on his own so that the other characters wouldn't know about these letters and wouldn't need to know about the letters. It's not relevant, and it's not relevant to the plot. But my beta reader, she made a comment. She said, this feels like this felt like it didn't belong. It felt like, not in her words, but in my words, this is what she was saying. This felt like a convenient way for you, the author, to have this second character know things from the last book that they wouldn't otherwise know. And it didn't strike me as something you had planned for. And so I was like, and my reaction to that was, I'm glad you told me that because I need to know that. The reality is it was very well planned. There are scenes, and I mentioned at least one of these scenes. There's one scene in the third book where this character is intentionally on his own, doing his own thing in a village while the other characters are doing their own thing. And part of the reason why this character is on his own is so that he can do that he can send letters and he can find information that he needs, that he doesn't want the other characters to know and be part of. So it was very intentional. But if that little thing in the fourth book takes the reader out and makes them feel like I'm cheating them in some way or trying to trick them in some way, that's not good, because that kind of thing drives me insane. And so now, as I'm working through the third book again, I am clarifying some of those details. Anyway, I find that my editor's developmental edit, I had considered cutting back and not paying for a developmental edit and only paying for a copy edit. And I'm going to assume that you've watched past videos, and so you know the difference between those two things. But I think at this point that a developmental edit is still worth it. Because let's say that this is, could you tell I was trying to take in the whole screen? This is the size of my audience if I write my book to market, right? This is all the people who enjoy reading dark fantasy. And this is the type of reader that I'm writing specifically to. My editor is trying to get my audience to be this big, and I'm writing only this big. So if she is developmentally editing the book to fit this large of a crowd, and I am reading her notes and making adjustments, then what I'm doing is I am expanding my audience to somewhere in between those two extremes. You know what I'm saying? And I think that that's good. And so that is one of the ways that I've seen this, and I felt like it was justification for the developmental edit, is because of that. But it is always a bit of a conflicting experience for me when I'm working through it. I am both excited and nervous about this process, because until a person reads the book and has a reaction, I don't know how people are going to react. My beta reader is an excellent beta reader, and does far more than I any other beta reader I have ever heard of. Like, she literally reads every manuscript I write 6, 8, 10 times. Honestly, I don't know. She's also my formatter, so she is involved in this process in multiple layers. But she will give me multiple edits of the same manuscript, a line by line edit. And obviously, the later in the process the manuscript gets, the less comments and less edits she makes. But she's editing every version, every draft of the manuscript because she wants to, and because it's valuable to me. That is what we're doing, and she gets it. But she is not a traditional reader either. Like, she doesn't read. One, she's not a big fantasy reader. Two, she's definitely not a mass market fantasy reader, or mass market reader in general. So there's no way for me to know how well the book will do with most readers until the book is published and it's out there and people are reading it. And that is, quite honestly, unnerving in some ways. It's like, but again, I trust the feedback that I've gotten on the first 2 books. And I think that is indicative of the way I write and not just the story that I was writing. So I'm going to go with it, and I'm doing it. And I am excited about the changes that I'm making based on my editor's comments. It's also a lot of work, and is going to remain a lot of work. I basically have 3.5 months to get this manuscript ready for proofing. I have already selected a date. My editor and I have already signed the contract on when she will proof the book, proof the manuscript. So all is going as planned, but I got a lot of work to do over the next few months. So that's it. That's all I'm going to say about that today. I'm working on it today, and I needed to step away because my brain was getting tired. Peace out, Girl Scout. Take care of yourselves. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourselves. As always, it's very important to me, and should be to you, that you are taking care of yourself, that you are getting enough sleep, that you are getting enough rest, and doing enough fun stuff, because if all we do is chase our dreams or, work to make money or whatever our motivation is, for me, I have a full-time job. Also, the economy is whipping my ass right now, which is making writing or publishing harder and harder because the expenses are growing. All of my expenses are growing, but my income is staying the same. And that is not okay. So, there's a balance between pursuing your goal and pushing and being driven and putting in the hours and putting in the work and the effort that is needed and all of those things. And, in my particular circumstances, treating my writing, treating my publishing as if it is making me money, even though it is not making me money, because I believe that if it is ever going to earn me an income, I have to treat it like it earns me an income now. I have to give it that kind of importance. You understand what I mean? So that's what I'm doing. But in that, it's also important that I remember to protect my sanity and protect my mental and emotional and physical well-being, get enough sleep. And if I need to take a break, take a break. And part of the way that I manage that is I have goals, I set deadlines, I have my target right now is to make it, I have 3 book work days a week. If you don't remember, I work 4 10-hour days a week at my job, And then every morning I work for an hour on my book stuff, and then I have Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays as book work days. And those are full 8 to 10 hours worth of, work on those 3 days. So essentially, if you do the math, I have 2 full-time jobs. And I'm managing to work two full-time jobs. Only one of them pays me. But I'm working 2 full-time jobs in this scenario with my setup. And one of the ways that I stay on target and I don't get burned out is I set goals for myself, and I have an organized timeline and outline of how things should happen and when. So for example, right now working through my 3rd manuscript, The Singing Bones, each book work day, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, I need to get through 2 chapters in this first rewrite edit. The next pass, it will be 3 chapters per book work day. I know that by the middle of May, I need to have finished my first rewrite of this manuscript, so that then I can begin to really focus on working through at a quicker clip in my second pass, because I will need at least a 3rd pass before this 4-month period is up. By the 3rd time, I can begin to do this work in the mornings as well as on my book work days. That's how I stay on target. And last weekend was excellent. I actually made it through 3 chapters on each day, which meant that I came into this Thursday ahead of the game. And on Thursday, again, I got 3 chapters done rather than 2. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So that's good. And that's how I protect myself and don't get stressed out, is because I set deadlines, I have targets, I have actual dates on my calendar, and I know what I need to do. So whatever it takes for you to do the same thing to protect yourself and make sure that you're getting enough sleep and rest and all of those things, and just take a day off, from time to time, whatever it is, no matter what your passion is. Okay, Mama Eric's going to stop talking now. Peace out, home skillet, take care of yourselves, have fun, be good. Also, be a little naughty, because, life is short, and just don't be naughty at anyone else's expense, you piece of shit. No, you're not a piece of shit. You're a great guy and great gal. You're perfect. No, you're not perfect. Let's be real. You're not perfect. But you're good enough. I don't want your head to get too big. Also, I don't know you. I don't know... I'm not on drugs, but I should be, perhaps, because... No, I shouldn't. I'm going to shut up. I'm not going to shut up, but I'm going to stop recording, because that's the only way I can do this. There's no way to know how a reader is going to respond. I have a beta reader, but who reads everything. I did just smell my fingers. And it's because, I used a botanical disinfectant wipe earlier, and it smells like eucalyptus or something. I think it's eucalyptus, and it smells good, but I'd forgotten, and I just got a whiff, and then I smelled my fingers. But you don't know what I was smelling. I could have dug some crevice of my body and sniffed, which would be disgusting, and I don't do that. I swear. Look at me. I do not scratch myself and then sniff my fingers. Now you tell me what my body language is telling you right now. Am I telling the truth? Yes. Yes, I am. And if I wasn't, I would say, yes, of course. Yes, I am. See the difference? Yes, I'm telling the truth. I do not scratch and sniff. Moving on.